Hello, I'm Mantastic and Fantastic, and today I'm going to be talking about the June Bride rarity machine that has come to North America in June. So, this is one of the oldest running seasonal events in the game, and because of its age, it tends to have many lackluster and terribly old cards found within. And this is most notable because it ranges from 4-star to 9-star rarities, with some of these cards being part of the original series, and even though Gung Ho does buff older cards periodically, they tend to give much less love to the bottom rarity, which is going to be a problem because if you really think about it, the 6, 5, and 4-star cards are really not that great whatsoever, especially the bottom. Like 4 out of the 5 bottom cards I see are absolute garbage. And if you look at just 6, 5, and 4 stars, they comprise 78.8% of the rolling pool, and at the same time, quite a few of the other higher rarity cards have just okay value. And as a result, you're going to be sad most of the time you roll because only the top rarity or 9-star cards have weapon assists, and there's just no real point in rolling this. And in all honesty, I feel like if you are someone who's serious about advancing their progress in pad, there is no real reason you should be rolling in this event because there is just such low value, and the chances of you rolling something good are incredibly low. So for myself, I would just suggest you take your free roll and don't look back. But at the same time, it's still useful to take a look at what all the cards can possibly do. And it kind of looks like a reasonable distribution, but you have to remember, it's rare that I put so many cards at the bottom rarity, and these 4 cards at the bottom rarity are 4 out of the 5 cards from the 4 or 5-star tier. So you're going to be highly disappointed on basically 50% of your rolls. Not the greatest odds overall. So let's take a look at the cards either way. So for Bride Roche, which is one of the new cards that was released, she is a 9-star card, which means she's going to be available to trade for through the monster exchange system, but I do not recommend it. And in terms of her value, she brings 2 skill bind resist, which is helpful if you're running cards that lack it. She also has 4 TPAs with a monstrously large attack stat, can gain a 7 combo or another TPA awakening or VDP, has flexible super awakenings, but the point of the matter is she's a TPA oriented card, and that's going to be her main appeal, but at the same time that's going to be her main problem overall. But I'll explain why that's a problem after I go through the rest of her kit. For her active skill, it's a 4-turn cooldown, which is always desirable, and it gives you a 1-turn attack boost based on the number of TPAs on your team. So it doesn't matter if you have only her on your team for TPAs, it's still an attack buff, which will overwrite any existing debuff, which is nice. And at the same time, you create 4 wood orbs. This technically could be like a system in a way if you have many of her, but that's just truly outrageous and luxurious and not really applicable. But the point of the matter is, it's a fast cooldown which can charge up quickly. In terms of her leader skill, she negates all poison damage and gives bonus health for wood cards, and gives you bonus damage and increased combo count by 1 when matching 4 or more connected wood orbs at once. So easy to activate, easy to play, but it's not going to have issues because the multipliers are in the lower end. It's just not as spectacular as what we want them to have. So due to the fact that she has so much TPA damage, I want to just take a look at why TPA is a problematic awakening, and this is going to actually hold true for lots of the other cards in this review because many of these cards are TPA oriented. Because the main issue of TPA is that it is a relatively inefficient awakening, and this is because TPAs only provide 1.5 times bonus attack per awakening, whereas something like 7 combo or attack well below 50% provides 2 times damage. So for comparison's sakes, let's say you have 5 TPAs. That gives you 7.6 times personal damage. 777 combo gives you 8 times. So you spent 2 less awakenings to achieve a better result. And TPA does not have any synergy or interaction with other awakenings. If you match a row, well, you didn't match a TPA. If you match a VDP, you didn't match a TPA either. In order for the TPA to really take off, you have to match the other pattern and the TPA. So the void spawns are going to require you to have the VDP on the card, which may or may not always happen, or rely on void damage void actives, which is wasteful to a certain extent. But you'd have to match the VDP and a TPA. So 13 orbs instead of 9. Much more problematic overall, whereas a 7 combo card could match the VDP, hit 7 combos, and still get all of their multipliers. Same thing can be applied for rows. You match your row, hit 7 combos, still get big damage. That's the reason why my Norza team is able to dish out huge amounts of damage, because I can stack rows, well, if Orbin has as well, but rows and 7 combos. The point of the matter is TPA can't stack damage as efficiently and requires more awakening slots. So they are less efficient, they provide less damage, they're more restrictive in terms of the patterns they can match alongside of it, and it's more orb hungry and have difficulty dealing with voids. And for all of these reasons, unless you can find a dedicated place to use them as a team, they're going to be problematic. Right now, Grigory, I feel, is the only truly good TPA team, but he does face quite a few hurdles compared to other teams with similar multipliers just because of TPA's innate weakness. And Bride Roche is not able to be utilized on that team, and for the most part, no team is really going to want her, because when you think about it, those TPAs are probably going to be going to waste, which is basically most of her kit and damage, so it makes her much less special. Of course, that could all change in the future if we get a leader or team that can beautifully capitalize upon TPAs, then Bride Roche might have significantly more value. But at this point in time, I feel like she is a reasonably strong card, but is hindered by the fact that TPA is just an ineffective awakening. In terms of her weapon resist, it provides a TPA, surprising, as well as a cloud resist, which is always useful. But it's the active itself that is quite appealing. It provides you with a complete clear of all unable to match orb effects, as well as removing all awoken skill binds. And then for 2 turns, you get a plus 30% attack bonus for each 2-prong attack from the team. So this active skill solves 3 possible problems within endgame content. It counters unable to match orbs, awoken binds, and any attack buff, or debuff I should say. So when you think about it, this weapon is a perfect counter to Odin Dragon in Ultima 4, who does all these obnoxious things to you. It also can be used to counter out various other mechanics. And for the most part, I feel like this weapon assist could have been much better, but the biggest problem is the cooldown is a bit too long. You can't really rely on it that well for a solution for Awoken Bind clearing. It's a great final solution for like the end spawns, but for all the floors leading up to the final bosses, you're going to need a solution for Awoken Binds throughout, and this is sadly not going to be the case, as well as the attack buff. You may not be able to stall the 20 turns plus the base card's own cooldown after using it on, say, like the Snow Globe, and then going into the Odin, like the Shiva Dragon and whatnot at the end. It's just quite a long cooldown, so you might only get 1 use out of this, maybe 2 if you're lucky. So it's just, you can't rely on it as easily. If this was a shorter and more manageable cooldown, it'd definitely be much more valuable, because it does give you at least an alternative to using Fagan Rise weapon if you need cloud resist and you don't care about skill boost for transforming. It can have that value, but I feel like the fact that the cooldown is just so long, it makes it difficult to use overall. And while the attack buff is probably going to be small unless you have many TPA cards in the team, it's at least going to overwrite any existing debuff. Going to the next 9-star card is Bride Zela. And Bride Zela has become stronger overall. She provides 777 combo, a super follow-up attack, and can gain a VDP through her super awakenings. So this is going to allow her to deal tremendous amounts of personal damage when you incorporate all 3 of those mechanics plus her active skill, because her active skill gives you plus 2 combo count and then unlocks the board and gives you a board of just light and heart orbs. So from that board of light and heart orbs, you're able to match like a 3x3 box of light, a 3x3 box of hearts, which will trigger the VDP and trigger the super follow attack, which is 2.5 times personal damage for the VDP, 2 times damage for the super follow attack, and if you hit the 7 or more combos, which should be doable, you will have 8 times on top of that, which, if you calculate it all out, results in a 40 times personal attack against any spawn. And this is before you incorporate her killer latents, which you will probably put on, as well as any weapon assist that provides bonus personal damage. So this is a tremendous amount of damage output from a card against any type of spawn, which obviously has great synergy for active skill, because assuming on a 6x5 board your distribution is at least 17-13 in either direction, you are able to hit 7 combos with the plus 2 combo count while having the 2 boxes. So she can be a tremendous and powerful damage solution for your mono light teams. But the biggest hurdle, I feel, is that she only comes with 1 skill boost. She doesn't provide much in the way of utility, and the big issue is, with 1 skill boost, it makes it difficult to basically incorporate onto transforming teams. Because when you think about it, cards that transform tend to be much stronger, and they contain 0 skill boost. So you're like thinking, well, I have a Bridezilla of 1 skill boost, or I can get a transforming card potentially with 0 skill boost, but it may end up being stronger. You might end up going with the transforming card, or you're just running basically a team that needs to transform. Bridezilla won't be included. Another possible issue that you might encounter is that if you are going to bring a 1 or low skill boost card as damage, A10 may just be the better solution. He has a shorter cooldown, which makes it easier to inherit something like Umbrella or Gung Ho Yomi's, the light Yomi's powerful weapon assist. And A10 also deals spectacular amounts of damage. So, like, I feel like Bridezilla is, like, kind of, like, territory, so to speak, has definitely been encroached upon. And her niche, compared to, say, a year ago, has definitely been decreased because we have more and more damage solution cards available. And transforming is definitely the way of the future, at least from what I can see. So, it's not to say that Bridezilla is weak. It's just that she has lots more competition currently available. But again, if you can incorporate her on your team, she's going to be a phenomenal damage solution. In terms of her weapon assist, she provides a single skill boost, which helps transforming, and a super follow-up attack. So super follow-up attack will be buffed in the future to deal 99,999 true damage, along with providing 2 times personal damage for the owning card. So, like I mentioned beforehand, you can utilize it on someone like Bridezilla because that super fall attack does have synergy with her active skill, which in turn makes it so her personal damage goes up. It can make it so she deals spectacularly high amounts of personal damage, but you also can weave it into teams that rely on super follow attack damage to kill things like A10 or the latent Tamadras in Altarena 4/Arena 6. Basically, the idea is if you have enough super follow-up attacks on the team, you can match a 3x3 heart box and basically chunk or kill down the respective spawn. It is an alternative to having guard break or having large amounts of auto follow-up attack damage, which are both cleaner solutions, but it does give the possibility at the same time. But with that being said, unless your team is heavily oriented towards abusing super follow-up attack, this weapon assist is not going to be very helpful because, well, it's just a single skill boost anyways, and you can find that on so many different cards. Next is Wedding Eschamali, and Wedding Eschamali provides you with massive amounts of orb enhances. 7 orb enhances. That's a tremendous amount of passive damage, but at the same time, because 7 of her 9 awakenings are taken up by this, so she doesn't provide much else, unfortunately. And that is obviously going to be the biggest crutch. She's basically just a passive damage solution. She does not offer personal damage. She doesn't offer any other utility. The active skill is great for flooding the board of light orbs and creating light skyfalls, but it's still not helping the utility aspect. And at this point in time, I do feel that subs can definitely have no personal damage, but they need to usually have a utility to make up for it. Because on most of the teams I run, I have like dedicated damage dealers and dedicated utility cards. And Eschamali is going to be floating this weird kind of situation. She doesn't provide utility, doesn't provide damage, just passive damage. It helps everyone. And in my head, this is going to be the last thing I pursue when building my team. It's the last type of sub type, so to speak, I would want to have because I need to have my damage needs addressed. I need to have the utility / counters to mechanics address before I can layer in passive damage. So it's kind of falling into that category. But with that being said, Wedding Eschamali does become much stronger with her pixel form because it provides her much more utility. So in her pixel form, she gains large amounts of VDP damage, which means she can be a damage solution now. She does provide 5, not 7, still a tremendous amount of orb enhance anyways, large amounts of passive damage for the whole team. But her active skill has been upgraded and changed. So going from a 10 turn to a 15 turn cooldown might seem problematic and losing out on the Skyfall aspect, but it's a 1 turn of damage absorb void. So you have a Fujin style active skill with a wood, heart, and hazard orb changer into light on a 15 turn cooldown. Fujin is 19 turns with no orb changer, just a haste. So this active is infinitely more valuable, especially for mono light teams. And the main reason why I'm so attracted to this active skill is that it won't go to waste. You were going to use that orb changer to kill stuff, which is great. So if the damage absorb spawn does not appear, your active is still intact and safe, which is going to be an issue which I'll talk about in future cards because their active secondary benefit is nowhere near as powerful. So the active is going to have value, and it's a fast Fujin, so you're not going to be upset either. If it charges up, well, I have an orb changer or I can counter absorb spawns. It's going to be valuable. So I feel like this gives her much more merits as a mono light sub. Obviously, I'm not going to probably roll her, but the point is, if you do roll her and experiment, you might be able to free up other slots on your team because you now no longer have to worry about carrying a damage absorb void active skill, and you have a damage VDP solution as well as passive damage for the rest of your team. Next is Bride Scheat, and she's not Scheaty by any means, but she's just a TPA stick. And as I mentioned before, TPA is problematic, and Wedding Scheat does actually have quite low attack. And that is problematic. Like, her active skill is nice. You get a column of light, a column of hearts, 4 turns of light skyfalls. It's great if you're wanting to try and make a follow-up attack as well as a TPA match, but again, TPA is truly difficult to take advantage of this point in time, and If you are truly, truly gung-ho about Scheat, in her reincarnated form, she is much stronger because her attack stat is improved, which is a big deal for TPA cards, and she also gains the ability to have 4 latent killer slots instead of 3. But at the same time, this is a permanent evolution. It cannot be reversed. You cannot change her into her other forms if you want a monster exchange at a future date. You are locked into these reincarnated forms. And I don't like that for the most part, but that's just sadly a way of life. In addition to that, she also has a reasonable leader skill if you are able to match multiple light combos. It's kind of like Alice in the sense that you need to match multiple light combos for damage. But the problem is, you don't get as beautiful a pairing with Fasca, because Fasca solves the orb-hungry needs of multiple light combos with 7x6. Scheat won't have that option, so it's just going to be a little bit more problematic, and you're also locked into this form. So I feel like Scheat is a reasonable, strong card. Huge TPA potential, but again, not many great places to truly take advantage of. And unless you know you can use this card right now and can foresee yourself using her for the long term, don't make this evolution. Next is Wedding Roshana, and she is a solid damage solution for mono wood teams. She provides 2 VDPs, double 7 combo, attacker, killer, 3 skill boosts. She's pretty well rounded, as well as having an active skill that generates a row of wood orbs. So she can fulfill an orb changer role. She can inherit things reasonably well, and she also has solid damage output. Like, it's a pretty strong card all around. The main issue is I feel like wood is a bit of a lacking color, generally speaking. Other colors seem to have a bit more of an advantage as a whole, and it's not to say that Roshana is weak, I just feel like wood is a bit less magical at this point in time. So she can definitely be able to function as a potent damage solution for your mono wood teams. It's just I feel like wood is not in a good place right now. Next is Bride Raijin, and they are a reasonably reliable rainbow sub. They can have double 7 combo of guard break or triple 7 combo if you already have guard break solved. Like, they're a reasonable... It's a reasonable amount of damage output, especially with a higher base attack, and if you are playing a rainbow team, this could be a solution for guard breaking. In addition, their active skill is quite short. It's a 1-turn no Skyfall active, along with changing the whole board to every color plus hearts. So full rainbow board, overwrites no Skyfall debuffs. Nothing truly sensational or magical, but not bad. It's just a reliable card. So at the same time, I feel like Wedding Raijin can function for rainbow teams if you lack the spicier options available. Next is Wedding Izanagi, and Wedding Izanagi has large amounts of personal damage, especially against devil types when below 50% health. And his active skill is self-sufficient. It's a 50% health cut while spawning a column of light orbs, as well as a attack buff of 1.5 times. And his leader skill, all you need to do is be a god type and be below 50% health for 324 times attack. So you're like, wow, this is a great farming card. But unfortunately, it's not as great as you might think, because light has virtually no gods with attack well below 50% awakening. It just doesn't really happen. And because of that, his team is going to be mostly dupes of himself. There will be players who can get numerous duplicates of Izanagi, but at the same time, that's not a practical thing for the average player. Like, if you get lucky and roll 1 Izanagi, you're going to have a tough time populating your team. Like, his leader skill does give +1 combo, so +2 of dual leaders, so you could match 5 combos and bam, hit 7 combos, but you're going to be already disadvantaged compared to other farming teams, because other farming teams can just swipe and kill stuff. Izanagi, unless you have multiple of himself, is not going to be able to swipe and kill things, which is definitely going to be problematic. Like, I feel like it definitely could have been a much stronger card if Light had a better subpool. If Izanagi was dark and was for devil typing, let's say, oof, you'd have so many cards you could use, several farmable cards, many more things you can definitely take advantage of, but sadly that is not the case overall. On the bright side, if you are truly gung-ho about Wedding Izanagi, you can purchase them as they are an orb skin. Next is Wedding Kulia, and this is the first Kulia that doesn't truly suck, because Kulia, or Julia with a K, has not been in a good place in their other events. So this Kulia has triple Dragon Killer, a VDP, and can gain a 7 combo. So they can have huge amounts of personal damage against dragon spawns when you factor in the other damage awakenings, which can definitely be meaningful because at least at this point in time in Arena 6 or Alt Arena 4, the end spawns are dragons, so being able to counter them is definitely meaningful. At the same time, their active skill is incredibly valuable because it's a 3-turn active, and even though it's probably going to be a tiny burst, any burst overwrites any debuff, which can be meaningful, but at the same time, you can inherit something over top that will provide your team with more value. As a leader, they have lower multipliers for sure outside of the health, which is quite solid, but they have lower attack multipliers, no RCV multipliers. But the bigger issue is the card has to be dark to get health bonus, the card has to be light to get the attack bonus. So your sub pool will definitely be a bit more constricted in that sense, but at the same time, if you just match light and dark, you have your full attack multiplier and 500,000 auto follow attack damage. You definitely compare her with things like Herme or other mono dark cards or even mono light cards that kind of have similar active leader skill requirements in order for them to deal meaningful damage. So it is possible you can build a team around her. I just feel like it's not going to be as magical as other stuff right now, but still definitely capable of clearing difficult content, mostly because her own personal damage is exceptional against the later sponge, which can definitely alleviate a great deal of team building pressure. So next is Wedding Satsuki. So this is a new evolution for them, and they have reasonable TPA damage, but what I find the most appealing about is their leader skill is because it is 324 times attack when you're above 50% health if you are a dragon or attacker. So a much bigger sub pool, and you can match any type of pattern you want. Obviously, it doesn't have the prowess of Wedding Izanagi's attack all below 50%, through Wedding Satsuki, but your team can be a bit more flexible, and it's an easy to activate leader skill. You can farm content quite fast, and as long as you can predictably see what the spawns are going to do, you can keep your health high, and 324 times attack is quite high, and you also have 57.75% damage reduction, so you can take a modest amount of hits before your full multiplier is lost. So I feel like it's possible that this card can provide some benefits for players who are trying to farm content quickly. It can possibly do that, but at the same time, there are many options already available, so getting one now may or may not necessarily change your life. Wedding Persephone gives you 2 turns of Attribute Absorption Void, and Attribute Absorb Void for 1 turn can be helpful in various dungeons. For 2 turns, it's only truly helpful in something like Alt Arena 4 against Yomi Dragon because they are constantly absorbing colors and have super resolve. But that means you'd have to use Wedding Persephone as either a sub or as an inherit, and neither option is good because as a sub, she's not contributing much, and as an inherit, she doesn't provide any awakenings. So unless you're truly desperate for a color absorb void, it's not going to be that helpful. And at the same time, I've gotten by without a color absorb void in Alt Arena 4. It's less ideal, but it is definitely manageable, and it's much better than sacrificing so much of your team in order to fit her on. So I feel like if she had a weapon assist, she could have been much more valuable as a whole, but sadly that is not the case. Next is Wedding Panera. So this is not a sandwich at all. She is actually a 2-turn damage absorb counter. So basically we have many different 2-turn fusion actives now available, which is definitely cut into her viability. She does have reasonably strong personal damage, especially against God and Devil types when hitting big combo count, but the problem is her active skill, it is useful, and you do need to have a damage absorption void on your team somewhere, is a long cooldown. 22 turns is quite long, and it has no real beneficial secondary effect. If the damage absorb spawn does not appear, this active has really no effect, and that's problematic. If you remember Wedding or Pixel Eschamali, her other effect is giving you a powerful orb changer, which is going to be helpful. A bonus movement time buff is not going to be helpful, and this is why, at least for myself, when I team build, I prefer to have my damage absorb cards as inherits, because that way I'm better able to pick the secondary effect, or at least I can just micromanage it so it just doesn't charge up and put it on someone who has a valuable base active skill, which means, like, let's say I'm playing through Alt Arena 4. The first spawn that I can encounter is Persephone. If she doesn't appear, I can dump the active, like, say on my Gung-Ho Yomi. She's the one who carries the Ruka weapon assist. If I encounter Persephone, I have to wait, let it charge up. If I encounter A10, it means I can dump the active and then just use Gung-Ho Yomi's base skill again, which is valuable. And if Noah Dragon doesn't appear, I still have that base skill. I usually don't have it fully charged up by Noah Dragon. If I get Noah Dragon, I can easily stall. So the point of the matter is I prefer to have my damage absorption cards through inherits if possible, unless they bring a valuable secondary effect that makes me want to use them as a direct sub, because I don't mind if it charges up and the spawn does not appear. That's sadly not the case for Wedding Panera. Don't get me wrong, it's not to say that she's a bad card, I just feel like because we have so many more options now available, she's just less desirable overall. But remember, she still has 3 skill boosts. She does have skill charge to get this active up quickly. She does have guard break, which is great for rainbow teams, and she has meaningful damage against gods and devils, which are endgame spawns at this point in time. Wedding Parvati provides you with 60% poison resist, as well as reasonable amounts of personal damage, as well as a 3-turn cooldown. The problem is, the 60% poison resist is useful, but the thing is, super poison resist now exists. And super poison resist provides you with 100% protection and takes up 1 awakening slot. For these regular poison resist, you need 5 of them in order to catch up to super poison resist. So I could have 1 awakening or 5 awakenings. I'll take the 1 awakening that does the same thing. And because of that, Wedding Parvati just kind of quote-unquote has dead awakening slots because we now have things with super poison resist, which could have been used instead. So I feel like that just cuts down on her potential niche, because if super resist didn't exist, Wedding Parvati would definitely be more appealing, because you could definitely find creative ways to hit 100% poison resist more efficiently, but sadly that's not the case. In terms of her potential usage, like I said, she does have reasonable personal damage. She can have double 7 combo with a VDP. She does have a 3-turn active, which does overwrite no Skyfalls, as well as being able to inherit something easily over top. So a reasonable sub overall, but just nothing special at this point in time. Now we come to Wedding Ra. And Wedding Ra has 5 skill boosts and a 77,000 button damage. So 77,000 true damage is useful for farming the ticket events, like say, remember like Gung Ho pie farming? That was something people wanted to do. If you are trying to farm those dungeons in solo mode, they have very low amounts of health, which means if you button them, you can go through the floor quickly because you're using Varroa leaders to improve your drop rate chances. So the point of it is you can button through content quickly, get those drops with relative ease. He does have high skill boosts. The only drawback is if you're not using it as a button for those types of farming, Wedding Ra just kind of loses quite a bit of value, because if you think about it, we have a farmable Whale Door, we have farmable Raziels, which can provide same amounts of skill boosts, but they both also have lower cooldowns, which means if you are interested in inheriting something over top of your skill boost cards to use for the dungeon in hand, it'll be a little bit easier for Raziel or Whale Door. So it's not to say Wedding Ra is Wedding Ra can still function beautifully, but it's just more so that we have farmable solutions as well that makes him just less unique. And it's kind of like saying, well, you are a 6-star card, I thought you'd have a little bit more, because Wedding Bastet is also going to be kind of in a similar boat. She has 60% poison resist, which is useful, but again, Parvati has problems there. She has low weighted stats and doesn't provide much else aside from poison resist, so that's not really what you want in a card. Like, she doesn't actually provide much of anything else. She can still definitely be usable if you're brand new, but if once you have a more developed monster box, you're probably not going to want to use Wedding Bastet. Like, I guess Poison Resist and the Cloud can be helpful, but I feel like it's just not enough overall. Next are the 5-star cards, and first is Wedding Akechi, and Wedding Akechi used to be one of the most desirable cards in this event because of their active skill that provides you with Water to Hearts and Fire to Light, as well as enhancing all light orbs. Enhancing all light orbs is kind of like a pseudo damage burst buff, which was important when damage output was heavily in question. We had difficulty in one-shotting spawns. Now we one-shot basically everything. And now with attack debuffs, we need attack buffs, not orb enhances to overcome them. So Wedding actually Sally just misses that mark as well. He can still definitely be used on mono light teams who want Rose, but it's just that he is a much older card and he just feels much older as a whole. And that's kind of unfortunate, but that's the case of bottom rarity seasonal cards. And it's just going to go terribly downhill from here because Wedding Ruka and Wedding Kano have the same awakenings essentially with a different color row, but they don't accomplish anything. They have some auto heal, but cheese teams rather have damage reduction so they just don't die. Their active skill provides you with more hearts and a little bit of bind clearing. Whoop-de-doo. So they have also terrible weighted stats. There's no reason to run these cards. These cards are really just trophies. They shouldn't really exist anymore. Like, I think they were around at the debut of this event, and I really don't think they received any changes outside of a skill boost becoming a super skill boost, which does not change their value whatsoever. Next is Wedding Sopdet. So Wedding Sopdet, again, is going to be a sad card. She just provides you with 28% damage reduction against light, which could have been good for cheesing, but the problem is there's only one card in the game that I could find of Ilmina that changes the enemy's attribute to light, and that is Christmas Grida. Christmas Grida is probably not an easy card to acquire. Very few people have them, and considering that you'd have to roll many times for Wedding Sopdet, which is not a good idea, and considering there are farmable like pixel blobs like Bubblies, Woodseas, etc., you can get farmable resist cards instead of spending magic stones, and those farmable resist cards, their color changer can be purchased with monster points. So the point of the matter is, Sopdet is not fulfilling any niche whatsoever, and it's just a bad card overall because of that. Wedding Izanami, again, used to be incredibly valuable. She has 21% dark damage reduction, which was meaningful back in the day when DQ Hera was the big preemptive and scary. She also had orb enhances, which again were a great way to provide bonus damage for your team. Unfortunately, the terribly low weighted stats and no resists really are going to make her a justifiable sub. There's no real reason to run her. If you weren't running Wedding Eschamali as a sub, because there's too many orb enhances, you're not going to run Wedding Izanami, and Wedding Izanami provides much less overall while having terrible weighted stats. So, do I plan to roll in my dream rolls? Big answer is no. I do not intend to roll within this event. And that is because the June Bride event has terrible value across the board. Most of the 4 and 6 stars are garbage, with only Wedding Raw truly being at least reasonable. But is reasonable what we want when 78.8% of the rolls are that? The answer is no. But at the same time, it's always nice to dream. So for my top 9-star card, I would love to get a Bride Zela. She has offensive potential, she's pretty, she's got a wink. Yeah, it's a dream roll. I would like to get her. I wouldn't monster exchange for her, but I'd love to get her if I could roll her for free. Next, for the 8-star cards would be Eschamali, because her pixel form is appealing. Like, I feel that the damage absorption in conjunction with Orb Enhance's high BDP damage and a powerful Orb Changer is meaningful. For 7-star, I would like Kulia because she feels the most unique of the other 7 stars, could fulfill the most interesting gaps within my monster box, so to speak, and she is new at least, which usually means they are a little bit stronger compared to the older cards. For the 6 stars, Raw is 5 skill boosts. I'm not going to say no to getting him. I don't want to pursue him, but if I'm going to get a 6-star card, I want to get Wedding Raw over Wedding Bastet. 5-star cards, Akechi is the default winner because Ruka and Kano are just garbage. And for 4 stars, I prefer Wedding Izanami because I think she's prettier. I wouldn't use her. I already had one back in the day when she was actually valuable. I rolled her. So, in conclusion, the June Bride Reg Machine offers little value overall in my opinion. Like they do have a couple of possibly nice cards, but it's not worth rolling in. Considering that the vast majority of your rolls will be down here at the bottom, you're not going to be happy at all whatsoever. So with that in mind, let me know what you think about the June Bride in the comments below. Do you think it's worth rolling? And if you did roll, why did you roll and who did you manage to acquire? Hopefully all a Mantastic day. I wish you all the best luck in your own pad adventures, and happy puzzling.